One woman's mission, another woman's heart. Detective Alina Reyes had learned early that control was survival. Control your voice. Control your body. Control your heart. It was the only way to survive in a department that questioned her twice as hard and trusted her half as much. The knock on her office door came just after midnight. "Captain wants you," Officer Patel said, tone unreadable. Alina closed the case file in front of her and stood. Midnight meetings were never good. Captain Morris didn't waste time. He slid a thick black folder across the desk. Marino. Alina didn't touch it at first. Everyone in the city knew that name. Valentina Marino. Crime syndicate leader. Untouchable. Untestable. Untraceable. Clubs. Construction. Import businesses. Every legitimate front polished to perfection. No trafficking charges ever stuck. No drug busts that tied directly to her. Witnesses vanished. Paper trails dissolved. "She's careful," Morris continued. "Too careful. We believe she launders through her clubs. High-end venues. Exclusive clientele. Nobody we've sent in has gotten close." "And you think I can?" Alina asked evenly. Morris held her gaze. "She trusts women more than men. That hung between them. We need someone intelligent. Controlled. Someone who won't get swallowed by that world." Alina finally opened the file. There she was. A photograph clipped to the inside cover. Valentina Marino. Dark hair pulled back. Sharp cheekbones. Suit tailored to precision. Eyes that did not soften for the camera. Even in stillness, she radiated authority. Not chaos. Control. Alina felt something she didn't like. Recognition. "You'll go in as a dancer," Morris said. Her flagship club. The Velvet Room. Alina closed the file slowly. "How long?" "However long it takes." And just like that, the line was drawn. The transformation began the next morning. Dance training 6 hours a day. Physical conditioning. Accent softening. Backstory construction. Lena Cruz. 26. Recently relocated. Estranged from family. Independent. Unattached. Alina memorized Lena like scripture. The way she walked changed first. Less rigid. More fluid. Then her posture softened. Her gaze lingered longer. Her voice dipped into velvet. But beneath every rehearsal was calculation. Undercover work wasn't about pretending. It was about becoming believable. The first night she stepped into the Velvet Room, she understood why it was impossible to infiltrate. It didn't feel criminal. It felt curated. Low amber lighting bathed everything in warmth. Crystal chandeliers refracted slow-moving beams across polished floors. Music pulsed, deep, controlled, expensive. No chaos. No visible crime. Just luxury. Her costume was silk and illusion. Enough to captivate. Not enough to surrender power. When her name was announced, Lena, she stepped onto the stage. The music started slow. She didn't dance like the others. She didn't perform desperation. She performed command. Every turn deliberate. Every glance calculated. Every breath measured. Halfway through her set, she felt it. Eyes on her. Not hungry. Assessing. She lifted her gaze toward the VIP balcony. And there she was. Valentina Marino. Watching. No drink in her hand. No conversation partner. Just stillness. Observing. Their eyes locked. For a second too long. Alina almost missed her next step. The room disappeared. There was only that gaze. Cold. Curious. Unimpressed. And something else. Interest. When the music ended, applause filled the space. But Valentina did not clap. She simply rose and left. Alina exhaled for the first time in 3 minutes. Game on. 3 nights passed before the message came. Miss Marino would like to see you, the floor manager said carefully. Not Valentina. Miss Marino. Power lived in formality. Alina followed him down a private corridor lined with black marble and muted gold sconces. Soundproofed. Strategic. The lounge doors opened. Valentina stood near a window overlooking the city skyline. No bodyguards inside. No visible weapons. Just quiet confidence. You asked for me? Alina said, voice perfectly balanced between respectful and distant. Valentina turned slowly. Up close, she was even more striking. Not beautiful in a soft way. Beautiful in a controlled, deliberate way. You're new, Valentina said. Yes. You don't dance like the others. Alina held her gaze. Is that a complaint? A flicker, almost a smile. No. Valentina stepped closer. Close enough that Alina could smell her perfume, dark rose, smoke, something expensive and dangerous. You dance like you don't need anyone in the room, Valentina continued. Alina's pulse shifted. Maybe I don't. Silence stretched. Valentina studied her face as if memorizing it. Confidence, she murmured. Or armor? The question was sharper than it sounded. Alina didn't blink. Does it matter? It always matters. Valentina circled her slowly, not touching, but near enough to feel heat radiating between them. I built this place, Valentina said softly. People come here to forget who they are. You look like you're hiding who you are. Alina's breath almost faltered. Careful. You're very observant. I have to be. Their proximity tightened the air. For a moment, it felt less like an interrogation and more like gravity. Valentina stopped in front of her. Stay, she said quietly. Work here exclusively. It wasn't a request. It was a claim. Alina weighed the risk. Closer proximity meant faster intelligence. And greater danger. I'll consider it, she replied evenly. Valentina's eyes darkened slightly, not used to resistance. I don't make offers twice. Alina leaned in just slightly. Then I suppose I shouldn't make you. The silence between them shifted. Respect. Challenge. Interest. Valentina stepped back at last. Welcome to the Velvet Room, Lena. As Alina walked out, her pulse refused to steady. Because for the first time in years, she wasn't sure who was playing who. Alina told herself the second meeting would be easier. It wasn't. Valentina did not summon her this time. She simply appeared at the edge of the stage after closing hours, when the last of the wealthy patrons had disappeared into chauffeured cars and silence settled over the Velvet Room. Walk with me, Valentina said. Not a request. They moved through the empty club together. Without the music and bodies, the space felt different, more intimate, almost vulnerable. You're adjusting quickly, Valentina observed. I adapt, Alina replied. Valentina glanced at her. Adaptation implies survival. Alina felt the precision of that word. Survival. Valentina stopped near the bar, resting one hand against the polished marble. You don't drink while you work. You don't flirt beyond what's required. You never let anyone touch you longer than 3 seconds. Alina forced herself to remain relaxed. You're timing me? I time everything. A beat. Why? Valentina's gaze sharpened. Because control is the only thing that keeps power from becoming chaos. There it was again. Control. The same word that ruled Alina's own life. For a moment, they stood mirrored in silence, 2 women who had built themselves out of discipline. You think you're in control here? Valentina asked softly. Aren't I? Valentina stepped closer, invading the space without touching her. You're in my world, she said quietly. But you don't behave like you belong to it. And that bothers you? No. A pause. It intrigues me. The word hit differently. Alina felt the mission shift beneath her feet. This wasn't infiltration anymore. It was orbit. The incident happened on a Friday. A supplier, loud, arrogant, careless, grabbed one of the dancers too roughly near the VIP section. Before security could move, Valentina was already there. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't shout. She simply stepped between them. Remove your hand, she said calmly. The man laughed. It lasted exactly 2 seconds. Valentina leaned in close enough that only he could hear her. Whatever she said drained the color from his face. Security escorted him out without spectacle. The dancer was shaking. Valentina turned to her gently. You're safe here, she said. No performance. No audience. Just quiet authority. Alina watched the entire exchange from across the room. This wasn't a woman running a reckless criminal empire. This was someone enforcing rules. Later that night, Valentina called Alina into her office. You saw what happened. Yes. What did you think? It felt like a test. I think he won't be coming back. Valentina's mouth curved slightly. No. Alina hesitated. You don't tolerate exploitation. Valentina's expression changed, not softer, but deeper. I built this place because I was once somewhere without protection, she said evenly. I will never allow that here. Something flickered behind her composure. A past not discussed. A history carved in steel. Alina felt her perspective fracture. This was supposed to be simple. Target. Evidence. Arrest. But nothing about Valentina felt simple. You look disappointed, Valentina observed quietly. I'm not. You expected something uglier. Alina didn't answer. Valentina stepped closer, lowering her voice. I am not a monster, Lena. The statement wasn't defensive. It was factual. And for the first time, doubt pierced through the case file narrative Alina had memorized. That doubt was dangerous. Because doubt leads to empathy. And empathy leads to attachment. It was nearly 3 a.m. when Valentina found her again. The city glittered below the private rooftop terrace, a sea of light beneath a dark sky. You avoid my personal questions, Valentina said, leaning against the railing. I value privacy. Privacy is different from secrecy. Alina exhaled slowly. And what's the difference? Privacy protects peace. Secrecy protects fear. The words landed too close. Alina deflected. What are you afraid of? Valentina studied her, something almost amused in her eyes. Losing control. Of your business? Of myself. The vulnerability was subtle, but real. Wind moved through Valentina's hair. Without the interior lighting, she looked less intimidating. More human. You don't seem like someone who loses control, Alina said softly. Valentina turned toward her fully. Everyone does, she murmured. When something matters enough. The space between them shifted. This wasn't interrogation. This wasn't strategy. This was something unguarded. Why me? Alina asked before she could stop herself. Valentina stepped closer. Because you don't look at me like I'm power. A breath. You look at me like I'm a person. The honesty struck deep. Alina's pulse quickened. Careful. This was exactly how lines blurred. Valentina reached up slowly, giving time to pull away, and brushed a strand of hair from Alina's face. The touch was light. But the effect was seismic. Their eyes locked. Silence thickened. Alina felt the edge of something inevitable. Valentina's gaze dropped briefly to her lips. Then back to her eyes. "Tell me to stop," Valentina whispered. Alina should have. She didn't. Valentina leaned in. Their lips brushed, barely there, testing, uncertain. Electric. Alina felt every wall she'd built tremble. The kiss deepened slowly, carefully, like both were measuring the consequences in real time. It wasn't hunger. It was recognition. When they finally pulled apart, the world felt altered. "This complicates things," Alina whispered. Valentina's expression was unreadable. "Only if you let it." But Alina knew the truth. It complicated everything. Because she wasn't just getting closer to her target. She was beginning to fall. And falling, in undercover work, is how you lose. The first time Alina saw Valentina truly dangerous, there was no raised voice. No dramatic violence. Just quiet consequence. It happened in the back office, not the polished one Valentina used for guests, but the operational space beneath the club. Concrete walls. Surveillance monitors. Steel desk. Alina hadn't been meant to see it. She was passing through the hallway when the door opened. Two men stood inside, one bleeding from the mouth, the other shaking. Valentina stood opposite them, immaculate as ever. "You broke an agreement," she said calmly. The bleeding man tried to speak. She held up one finger. Silence. "I allow partnership," Valentina continued. "I do not allow betrayal." There was no shouting. No theatrics. Just inevitability. She nodded once to someone behind her. Security moved. The men were escorted out, not beaten further, not dragged violently, just removed. Efficient. Afterward, Valentina noticed Alina in the doorway. Their eyes met. A flicker of something passed between them. Not guilt. Not shame. Awareness. "You shouldn't be down here," Valentina said evenly. Alina stepped fully into the room. "I didn't realize there were parts of your world I wasn't allowed to see." "There are many." A pause. "Does it frighten you?" Alina searched her own reaction. It should have. Instead, what she felt was complexity. "You didn't hurt them," she said quietly. Valentina's gaze sharpened. "Pain is loud. Consequence is quiet." Alina absorbed that. "You're judging me," Valentina added. "I'm trying to understand you." The honesty surprised them both. Valentina stepped closer. "I don't pretend to be innocent," she said softly. "But I choose what kind of monster I am." The words lingered long after Alina left the room. Because they were not the words of a villain. They were the words of someone who had survived something worse. And that made this harder. Much harder. The call came at 6:12 a.m. "Update," Captain Morris said. No greeting. Alina sat upright in her apartment, still wearing traces of Valentina's perfume on her skin. "She's careful," Alina replied. "I need more time." "You've had 6 weeks." "She doesn't discuss operations openly." "You're close to her." The implication hung heavy. Alina stayed silent. "We can move in within a month," Morris continued. "We've gathered enough financial irregularities to justify warrants. Not enough for conviction. Enough for damage. If we rush this," Alina said carefully, "she walks." A beat of silence. "You're getting attached." "I'm getting strategic." "You're too deep." The accusation hit. But Morris wasn't wrong. After the call ended, Alina stared at the wall for a long time. Her chest felt tight. Because the department saw numbers. Transactions. Assets. But she saw something else now. A woman who protected her employees. Who ran a controlled empire. Who carried loneliness like armor. That didn't absolve crimes. But it blurred edges. That night at the club, Valentina seemed distant. Watchful. As if she sensed the shift in air pressure. During a private dance, Valentina didn't touch her. Didn't speak. Just observed. Finally, she said quietly. Something is pulling you away. Alina forced a slow breath. Work. Valentina's gaze lingered. You are never just at work, Lena. The way she said it felt like a warning. The rival family made their move subtly. A new investor appeared at the club, a woman named Adriana Moretti. Elegant. Calculating. Connected to a competing syndicate. Adriana lingered near Valentina all evening. Too close. Too familiar. Alina felt it immediately, an irrational heat under her skin. It shouldn't matter. This was an operation. But when Adriana touched Valentina's arm and leaned in to whisper something that made her laugh softly. It mattered. Alina's performance that night was sharper. Harder. Valentina noticed. After closing, she found Alina in the dressing room. You were distracted. I was working. Valentina stepped closer. Adriana unsettled you. Alina's jaw tightened. Why would she? Valentina studied her carefully. Jealousy is honest, she said softly. I don't get jealous. A small smile curved Valentina's mouth. Everyone does. The air thickened. You don't belong to anyone here, Alina said quietly. No, Valentina agreed. I don't. A beat. Do you want to? The question landed between them, fragile, dangerous. Alina's heart pounded. This was no longer flirtation. This was territory. Valentina stepped closer until their bodies nearly touched. I don't invite people into my life lightly, she murmured. Adriana is business. And what am I? Valentina's fingers brushed lightly along Alina's waist, not possessive, but intentional. You, she said quietly, are a risk. The honesty stole Alina's breath. Then why take it? Valentina's gaze dropped to her lips. Because some risks are worth the damage. The kiss that followed was not tentative like the first. It was deeper. More certain. But threaded with something else now. Claim. When they finally pulled apart, Valentina rested her forehead lightly against Alina's. I don't share what matters, she whispered. And that should have been victory. Instead, it felt like the beginning of something she might not survive. Because jealousy meant attachment. Attachment meant vulnerability. And vulnerability was the one thing undercover officers were trained to avoid. It wasn't planned. It wasn't dramatic. It happened because neither of them wanted to walk away. The club had closed early due to a private event. In reality, Valentina had cleared the schedule without explanation. Alina found her in the upstairs office, jacket discarded, sleeves rolled slightly, less armor, more woman. You sent everyone home, Alina said softly. Yes. Why? Valentina stepped around the desk slowly. Because I'm tired of pretending I'm not thinking about you. The honesty hit harder than any flirtation ever had. Alina's pulse pounded. This is complicated, she whispered. Everything worth having is. Valentina reached up, fingers brushing along Alina's jaw, slow enough to allow retreat. Alina didn't retreat. Their kiss this time carried no hesitation. It deepened quickly, not rushed, but inevitable. Hands found shoulders. Waists. Heat through fabric. But even as desire intensified, something else grew stronger, awareness. Valentina pulled back slightly, breath uneven. Look at me, she murmured. Alina did. This isn't ownership, Valentina said quietly. You choose this. The word struck deep. Because choice mattered. Alina nodded. Yes. And when they came together again, it wasn't reckless. It was intentional. Clothes abandoned piece by piece. Barriers lowered slowly. Valentina's touch was careful, almost reverent, as if she were memorizing every reaction. Alina hadn't realized how long it had been since she'd allowed herself to be touched without armor. Without control. Without calculation. For a few suspended hours, she wasn't a detective. She wasn't undercover. She was simply a woman in someone else's arms. Afterward, they lay tangled beneath dim office lighting. Valentina traced slow circles along Alina's shoulder. "You're still holding something back," she said quietly. Alina stared at the ceiling. "If I let go completely." She didn't finish. Valentina didn't press. But the silence between them was no longer empty. It was fragile. The department escalated pressure. Internal Affairs had intercepted financial irregularities linking a construction front to offshore accounts. "This is the opening," Captain Morris said. "We need her discussing money. Names. Routes." Alina felt cold. "She doesn't talk business around me." "Make her." The word sat heavy. "Make her." That night, Alina wore the wire again. It felt heavier than before. She met Valentina at her penthouse, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city like a kingdom beneath her feet. Dinner was quiet. Intimate. Real. Valentina noticed immediately. "You're somewhere else," she said. "Just tired." Valentina studied her carefully. "You lie differently when you're afraid." Alina's heart nearly stopped. "What am I afraid of?" "Losing control." The mirror again. Valentina stepped closer, brushing her fingers over Alina's wrist. "Ask me what you came here to ask." The wire pressed cold against Alina's ribs. She forced herself. "How does the construction company fit into the club finances?" Silence. Not anger. Not surprise. Just stillness. Valentina's gaze sharpened almost imperceptibly. "That's not a question you usually care about." Alina's pulse thundered in her ears. "I want to understand your world." "You already do." Another beat of silence. Then Valentina leaned closer, lips brushing just beside Alina's ear. "If you want to stay in my world," she whispered, "don't ask questions that don't belong to you." It wasn't a threat. It was protection. The wire recorded nothing incriminating. Because Valentina said nothing incriminating. But the cost was something else. Trust. When Alina left that night, she ripped the wire off in her car. And for the first time, she considered not turning in the recording. It was raining when Valentina told her. They were sitting on the penthouse floor, backs against the sofa, city lights blurred behind wet glass. "You think I was born into this," Valentina said quietly. "I assumed you inherited it." "I inherited chaos." Her voice lacked drama. It was stripped of performance. "My father believed fear was leadership," she continued. "When he died, everyone expected me to collapse." She looked down at her hands. "I was 23. Alina imagined it, a young woman stepping into a world of predators. "I rebuilt it," Valentina said. "Smaller. Cleaner. Controlled." "And anyone who refused?" Alina asked gently. Valentina met her eyes. "They left." The word held layers. "Left willingly. Or were removed." "You don't regret it?" Alina asked. Valentina considered that carefully. "I regret the girl I had to become." Silence filled the room. "Who was she?" Alina asked softly. Valentina's answer came almost too quietly. "Afraid." That word changed everything. Alina reached for her hand without thinking. Valentina let her. "I don't want to be feared by you," Valentina admitted. The vulnerability was sharper than any confession of crime. "You're not," Alina said. And in that moment, she meant it. Which terrified her. Because somewhere between the balcony and the rain-soaked windows, this had stopped being an assignment. It had become love. And love, under false identity, is not just dangerous. It is catastrophic. Alina didn't submit the full report. It was a small omission. A missing timestamp. An unexplored account. A conversation reframed as personal instead of operational. Small. But intentional. Captain Morris noticed. "You're slowing down," he said flatly during their next briefing. "I'm building something sustainable," Alina replied. "We don't need sustainable. We need prosecutable." He slid photos across the table, surveillance stills, financial charts, coded transfers. "Another unit is preparing a parallel case," he added. "If you can't close this, someone else will." The message was clear. You are replaceable. That night at the Velvet Room, Alina watched Valentina across the crowd. Commanding. Untouchable. Surrounded by loyalty. And yet, when their eyes met, something softer flickered there. Something reserved only for her. Later, in Valentina's private office, the door locked behind them. "You're distant," Valentina said. "I've had a long week." Valentina approached slowly. "You protect me differently now." Alina's breath caught. "What does that mean?" "It means," Valentina said quietly, "you intervene when conversations drift too far. You redirect attention. You deflect investors." She stepped closer. "You're shielding me." The irony nearly crushed her. "I don't need shielding," Valentina added. "I know." But Alina couldn't stop herself. Because every piece of intelligence she gathered now felt like a knife she'd eventually have to use. And she wasn't sure she could. Valentina touched her face gently. "You're carrying something heavy. If you only knew." Alina kissed her instead of answering. And for a moment, she let herself pretend that love could cancel consequences. Valentina trusted very few people. And she trusted no one blindly. The first anomaly was small. Lena's background file, one Valentina had quietly requested through private channels, came back incomplete. No childhood records before 18. No verifiable school transcripts. No social footprint beyond 5 years. Too clean. Too curated. Valentina didn't react outwardly. She hired someone. A discreet investigator named Matteo, loyal and thorough. "Find the spaces between her story," Valentina instructed. Matteo nodded once. Meanwhile, Valentina behaved normally. Too normally. She was attentive. Affectionate. Present. But her eyes lingered longer when Alina spoke. Her questions sharpened slightly. "Where did you say your sister lives?" she asked casually one evening. "Phoenix," Alina replied without pause. Valentina smiled faintly. "You told me Denver." The correction came softly. Alina's stomach tightened. "I misspoke." "Of course." The conversation moved on. But the air had shifted. That night, Valentina stood alone on the balcony after Alina fell asleep. Her expression was unreadable. Trust is not destroyed in a single moment. It erodes in quiet inconsistencies. And Valentina had built her empire on reading inconsistencies. Internal affairs stopped being patient. "You will wear the wire," Morris said bluntly. "Tonight." Alina stared at the device in his hand. "This is reckless. This is decisive. If she suspects, she won't." But Alina wasn't so sure anymore. The penthouse felt different that evening. Too quiet. Valentina poured wine but didn't drink. "You're tense," she observed. "Am I?" "Yes." The wire pressed cold against Alina's ribs. She had sworn she wouldn't do this again. And yet here she was. "Talk to me," Valentina said softly. "About what?" "Your offshore accounts." Your suppliers? The life I'm supposed to dismantle? Alina forced the question. Where do you see this going? Valentina stilled. Us? She asked. Yes. The vulnerability was real. And that made the deception unbearable. Valentina stepped closer. I don't build temporary things, she said quietly. If I choose you, I choose you fully. The words hit like a confession. And if I can't give you everything? Alina whispered. Valentina studied her with piercing intensity. Then you shouldn't take what I'm offering. Silence thickened. The wire recorded every breath. Valentina reached forward suddenly, not aggressively, but deliberately, and pressed her hand flat against Alina's chest. Right where the device rested. Alina's heart nearly stopped. Valentina's eyes locked onto hers. You're hiding something, she said quietly. Not accusation. Not anger. Certainty. The world seemed to narrow to that single point of contact. If Valentina pressed harder. If she stepped back. If she called security. It would all unravel. Instead, Valentina slowly withdrew her hand. When you're ready to tell me the truth, she said softly, I'll be here. No confrontation. No explosion. Just a door left open. Which somehow hurt more. After Alina left that night, she sat in her car and removed the wire with shaking hands. She didn't know which was worse. That Valentina suspected. Or that she was still willing to wait. Matteo arrived just before midnight. Valentina was alone in her private office at the Velvet Room, city lights cutting sharp lines through the glass behind her. He placed a thin folder on the desk. She doesn't exist, he said quietly. Valentina didn't touch the file at first. Explain. Lena Cruz, the birth records are fabricated. Social security number issued 6 years ago. No verified family in Phoenix. No educational footprint before adulthood. A pause. She's not who she says she is. The room felt smaller. Valentina opened the folder. Inside, photographs. Surveillance stills. Training Academy graduation. A badge. Detective Alina Reyes. Narcotics Division. Undercover specialist. The air left her lungs slowly, carefully, as if any sudden movement might shatter something fragile. How long? She asked. Assignment started 2 months before she applied here. 2 months. Every glance. Every touch. Every confession. Engineered. Matteo waited for anger. For orders. Instead, Valentina closed the folder with precise calm. Does anyone else know? Only me. Keep it that way. When he left, she remained seated in silence. Her hands didn't tremble. Her breathing didn't change. But something inside her shifted permanently. Because betrayal from an enemy is strategy. Betrayal from someone you love is devastation. Valentina invited her to the penthouse the following evening. No tension in her voice. No hint of discovery. Alina arrived cautious, but not prepared. Dinner was already set. Candles lit. Music low. City glowing beyond the windows. You look tired, Alina said. Valentina smiled faintly. I didn't sleep much. They ate in near silence. Valentina studied her in a way that felt different now. Memorizing. Noticing. Letting go. After dinner, Valentina walked to the window. Tell me something true, she said quietly. Alina stepped closer. What do you want to know? Your real name. The world stopped. Alina didn't move. Didn't breathe. Valentina turned slowly. Alina Reyes, she said softly. There was no anger in her voice. Which made it worse. Alina's throat closed. How long have you known? She managed. Long enough. Silence expanded between them like a widening crack in ice. I didn't mean for this to happen, Alina said, the weakest truth she had. Valentina let out a hollow breath. You came here to destroy me. I came here to investigate you. That's not different. Alina stepped forward desperately. You're not what they think. And what do you think? Valentina asked. I think you built something controlled. I think you protect your people. I think you're not the monster they painted. Valentina's composure faltered for the first time. You recorded me, she said quietly. Alina couldn't lie now. Yes. A flicker of pain crossed Valentina's face, brief but sharp. Was any of it real? Every memory flashed between them. The balcony. The rain. The first night together. Yes, Alina whispered. All of it. Valentina studied her, searching for even a shadow of deception. I loved you, she said finally. Past tense. Alina's chest cracked open. I love you, she replied. But love offered after betrayal is not comfort. It's cruelty. Sirens began faintly in the distance. Growing closer. Valentina's eyes flicked toward the sound. You wore the wire tonight. It wasn't a question. Alina felt the blood drain from her face. Yes. Valentina nodded once. Then this is how it ends. No, Alina said desperately. You can leave. I can stall them. Valentina's laugh was soft and broken. If I run, I confirm everything. She stepped closer. Close enough that their foreheads nearly touched. I would have burned this entire city for you, she whispered. Alina's eyes filled. Then let me fix this. You can't. The sirens were loud now. Outside the building. Valentina reached up one last time and brushed her thumb along Alina's cheek. The doors burst open. Armed officers flooded the penthouse. Commands shouted. Lights flashing. Weapons raised. Valentina did not resist. She raised her hands slowly. Gracefully. As if surrender were simply another calculated decision. Alina stood frozen as officers moved between them. Valentina Marino, you are under arrest. The words blurred. Cuffs clicked around Valentina's wrists. Cold steel against warm skin. Through the chaos, their eyes locked. No screaming. No accusations. Just devastation. As they led her toward the elevator, Valentina paused. Looked at Alina one final time. And in that look was everything. Love. Betrayal. Understanding. Irreversible damage. The elevator doors closed. And just like that, the empire fell silent. The headlines broke before sunrise. Crime queen brought down by undercover officer. Marino syndicate dismantled. Detective Alina Reyes praised for courage. Her photo was everywhere. Composed. Professional. Controlled. They used the Academy portrait. Not the woman who had stood in a penthouse and watched love turn into handcuffs. The department applauded her when she walked in. Actual applause. Captain Morris clapped her on the shoulder. You did it. Did she? Financial accounts were frozen. Clubs shut down pending investigation. Key associates detained. Operational success. Strategic victory. But as Alina sat in the briefing room reviewing confiscated evidence, something twisted in her chest. Valentina had not resisted arrest. Had not attempted to flee. Had not called in favors. She had simply accepted it. And that wasn't the behavior of someone scrambling to protect a criminal empire. It was the behavior of someone who had already lost what mattered. That night, alone in her apartment, the silence was unbearable. No music drifting from a balcony. No low voice asking careful questions. No warmth in the dark. She turned on the television. News coverage replayed footage of Valentina being escorted in cuffs. Even restrained, she looked composed. Untouchable. But Alina knew the difference between composure and containment. She turned the television off. The applause still echoed in her ears. It sounded like judgment. The courtroom was colder than she expected. Valentina sat at the defense table in a tailored gray suit, hands folded neatly, expression unreadable. 3 months had passed. 3 months of hearings. Asset seizures. Witness statements. Alina took the stand on the 4th day. She spoke clearly. Confidently. By the book. Yes, she infiltrated the Velvet Room. Yes, she established proximity to the defendant. Yes, she gathered evidence of financial misconduct. She did not mention the balcony. The rain. The way Valentina traced circles on her shoulder at night. Those details did not belong in court. When she finished testifying, she risked a glance toward the defense table. Valentina did not look at her. Not once. That hurt more than accusation would have. The prosecution built a careful case: laundering, racketeering, financial conspiracy. But they lacked something critical. Direct operational orders. Hard proof tying Valentina personally to violent enforcement. Because she had always insulated herself. And because Alina had never delivered the final blow. After 2 weeks, the verdict came. Guilty on lesser financial charges. Insufficient evidence on organized violence counts. Sentence: 15 years, with eligibility for appeal. Gasps filled the courtroom. Reporters scrambled. Alina felt the floor tilt. 15 years. Valentina finally lifted her gaze. Their eyes met across the courtroom. There was no hatred there. Just something exhausted. And then she was led away. The department celebrated again. Reduced sentence or not, it was still a conviction. Captain Morris mentioned promotion. Special commendation. Her name circulated upward. Alina declined the celebration dinner. She went home instead. The quiet felt different now. Heavier. She opened a drawer and found it still there. The silk ribbon from her first night at the Velvet Room. She hadn't meant to keep it. But she had. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She stared at it for a long time before answering. Silence on the other end. Then a familiar voice. Low. Steady. Controlled. They reduced it, Valentina said. Hearing her nearly undid her. Yes. 3 years minimum before appeal review. 3 years. Alina swallowed. I didn't know it would be that long. A quiet exhale on the other end. I did. Silence stretched. I won't rebuild it, Valentina said softly. Alina closed her eyes. The Empire. I'm done with it. The word surprised her. Why? A pause. Because the only thing I ever wanted from it was power. Another pause. And I learned the hard way that power doesn't keep you warm. Alina's throat tightened. I'm sorry, she whispered. For what? Valentina asked. For loving you? The question landed like a blade. I don't regret loving you, Valentina said quietly. I regret trusting you. The honesty cut clean. A guard's voice sounded faintly in the background. Time was short. When I walk out, Valentina continued, I won't be the woman you arrested. Who will you be? Silence. Someone who doesn't build walls out of fear. The line clicked dead. Alina stood in her silent apartment long after the call ended. 3 years. 3 years to decide who she was without the badge between them. 3 years to live with the knowledge that she had chosen duty over love. And she still wasn't sure which choice had been braver. Prison did not break Valentina Marino. It refined her. The first week was observation. The second was calibration. By the third, the hierarchy inside the federal facility had adjusted around her presence. She did not fight for dominance. She did not posture. She listened. Women gravitated toward her naturally, not out of fear, but because she radiated steadiness. No raised voice. No emotional outbursts. No panic. She read law books in the afternoons. Exercised at dawn. Wrote letters she never sent. One of them was addressed to Alina. She never mailed it. Instead, she tore it into thin strips and flushed it away. Meanwhile, outside those walls, the case began to fracture. A federal review uncovered procedural inconsistencies. Evidence mishandled. Warrants rushed. Financial records altered by an overzealous assistant prosecutor. And deeper still, Internal Affairs quietly opened a secondary investigation into Captain Morris. Anonymous tips suggested that certain competing syndicates had benefited from Marino's takedown. Selective enforcement. Strategic targeting. Political gain. Alina learned about it through whispers first. Then through official notice. She sat in a stark interrogation room months later, this time on the other side of the table. "Did Captain Morris pressure you to accelerate the arrest?" an investigator asked. "Yes." "Did he suggest political advantages tied to the case?" A pause. "Yes." That single word shifted everything. Because justice requires clean hands. And the department's hands were no longer clean. 2 years into her sentence, Valentina's legal team filed an appeal. Procedural misconduct. Selective targeting. Improper evidence chain. The prosecution fought it. But the cracks were visible. A hearing was granted. Alina attended in civilian clothing, sitting in the back row. Not as a witness. Not as an officer. Just as someone who couldn't stay away. Valentina looked different. Leaner. Sharper. Still composed. But prison had stripped away the polish. What remained was raw strength. The judge reviewed the findings carefully. While the defendant bears responsibility for financial violations, he stated, the court cannot ignore procedural contamination and prosecutorial overreach. Sentence reduced. Time served credited. Release scheduled within 60 days. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Valentina did not react. But her eyes scanned the room once. And found Alina. The contact was brief. But undeniable. Not soft. Not forgiving. Just aware. Later that evening, Alina received another unknown call. "I saw you," Valentina said. "I know." Silence lingered. "You testified," Valentina continued. "Yes." "Why?" Alina exhaled slowly. "Because what happened wasn't clean." "And you needed it to be?" "No," she said quietly. "I needed you not to carry something you didn't deserve." Another long pause. "I'll be released in 6 weeks," Valentina said. "I know. Don't come." The words landed heavier than any accusation. "I won't," Alina replied. But they both knew she might. Release day arrived gray and quiet. Alina did not go to the prison gates. She stayed at work. Signed reports. Answered calls. Pretended it was just another Friday. She told herself distance was mercy. That night, rain fell steadily against her apartment windows. She had almost convinced herself it was over. Almost. Then. A knock at the door. Soft. Measured. Her breath stopped. She crossed the room slowly and opened it. Valentina stood there. No designer suit. No bodyguards. No empire. Just a dark coat. Hair shorter now. Eyes older. They stared at each other for several suspended seconds. You said not to come, Alina said quietly. I meant the prison. The air between them felt charged, not with passion this time, but with history. You look different, Alina murmured. So do you. 3 years pressed into the space between their bodies. Why are you here? Alina asked. Valentina's answer was steady. To see if the only real thing in my life survived the wreckage. Alina's throat tightened. It did, she said. Valentina stepped just slightly closer. Then we need to decide what to do with it. No kiss. No immediate reconciliation. Just two women standing on the edge of something fragile. This time, there were no wires. No aliases. No hidden files. Only choice. And choice, after everything, was the most dangerous thing of all. The rain had stopped. City lights reflected off the wet pavement. Alina and Valentina sat across from each other at a small cafe, quiet and cautious. I never wanted you to get hurt, Alina said, hands wrapped around a mug of coffee, warmth seeping into her palms. Valentina studied her. You weren't thinking about me. You were thinking about the case. And in doing so, you became a part of it. I had no choice, Alina whispered. I was the officer assigned. The one who had to follow orders. Yet you still protected me, Valentina said softly. Even in secret. Alina's eyes dropped. I couldn't help myself. I couldn't just watch you get taken down and do nothing. Valentina leaned forward, careful, deliberate. And that, she said, is why I'm here. You risked your career for me, for us. Alina swallowed hard. It wasn't just about you. But, yes. It became about you. For the first time, they allowed silence to exist between them, not tense, not dangerous, just heavy with unspoken understanding. Weeks passed. Valentina moved into a modest apartment near the city center, leaving behind her clubs and empire. Alina kept her badge, but she started using her connections differently, to expose lingering corruption that had been hidden behind Marino's arrest. They began meeting nightly, cautiously. Cooking together. Walking in the park. Sharing stories that had once been withheld. Valentina's voice was softer now. More human. She laughed without calculation. Sometimes she teased Alina like she used to, letting a little fire back into her tone. Alina noticed the little things, the way Valentina's fingers brushed hers when passing sugar, the careful attention to her expressions, the quiet reminders that she was present and real. Trust, however, had to be rebuilt brick by brick. You still hesitate, Valentina said one night, watching Alina pause before taking a sip of wine. I'm careful, Alina admitted. After what happened, after what I did. I need proof you're here, not just a memory of what was lost. Valentina reached across the table and took her hand. Then let me give it to you. One day at a time. Alina allowed herself to squeeze back. The corruption investigation Alina had started uncovered names linked to officers who had expedited Valentina's arrest, people profiting from false charges and manipulated evidence. It was dangerous work. One evening, she returned home to find Valentina waiting. They know you're digging, Valentina said, voice calm but eyes alert. I don't care, Alina replied firmly. I won't let your world, my world, be built on lies. Valentina nodded. Then I'll help. Legally this time. Together, they compiled evidence, cross-referenced files, and prepared to expose the corrupt officers. Every meeting, every late-night phone call, every document signed and filed reminded them both why the world they'd lost could be rebuilt, stronger and honest. For the first time, there was no alias. No wire. No facade. Only them. And they were willing to risk everything for it. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters, flashing cameras, and the hum of curiosity. Alina stood at the edge of the crowd, hands in her coat pockets, heart thundering. She had done this before, countless arrests, testimonies, investigations. But this was different. This was personal. Valentina Marino stepped out, not as the feared mafia boss, not as the untouchable queen of an empire, but as a woman reborn. The sentence had been reduced. Years served. Legal battles concluded. Freedom restored. Her dark coat was elegant but understated. Her hair was shorter now, framing her face with a new softness. She spotted Alina immediately. For a moment, the world narrowed to that single gaze. No words. No hesitation. Just recognition. When Valentina approached, Alina felt the years of tension, secrecy, and longing crash into relief. "Hi," Valentina said, her voice calm but carrying every ounce of emotion they had never allowed themselves before. Alina stepped forward, closing the space between them. "Hi," she replied, voice steady despite the quiver in her chest. They stood there for a heartbeat, city noise fading behind the invisible walls of their own universe. Valentina reached for her hand. No games. No aliases. No caution. Just touch, deliberate, grounding, real. "You're here," Valentina whispered. "I'm here," Alina confirmed. "I never left." The crowd moved around them. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted. But neither noticed. Neither cared. Valentina finally spoke, her words heavy with honesty. "I don't want to rebuild the empire. I want to rebuild us." Alina's chest tightened. "Then we start here," she said, voice firm. "No lies. No secrets. No wires. Just us." And so they did. They walked away from the courthouse steps hand in hand, leaving behind the titles, the trials, the shadows of the past. Each step forward was lighter than the last. Later that evening, in a small apartment with rain streaking the windows, they cooked dinner together. Laughed over spilled wine. Brushed hair out of each other's eyes. Every touch a promise. Every glance a vow. There were no alarms. No deadlines. No enemy at the door. Only them. Only love reclaimed. Valentina looked at Alina, eyes soft, full of everything that had once been stolen. "I was afraid I'd never feel alive again." Alina smiled, brushing her thumb across Valentina's hand. "Then let me show you what alive really feels like." The city outside glittered, indifferent. The night stretched endlessly. And for the first time in years, both women felt whole. Because they had survived the fall. Survived the lies. Survived themselves. And finally, they could be free.